How many snaps did they run in the 14 personnel?
That's only for us.
100% of the snaps.
What's going on, guys? Marco here from 14P, and I am here to break down our top 5 wide receiver rankings post-combine. There's been a couple of pro days as well, so this is going to be our consensus rankings for Justin and myself. So I'll kind of break down where we both have them and then what we like, what we don't like about each of these guys. But obviously, it's the top 5, so we like a lot and we don't like very little. So let's jump into it. And taking over the number 1 spot recently for us is Garrett Wilson from Ohio State. He's 6 foot, 183. He'll be 21 during his rookie season, or a majority of the rookie season. And really, there's not much to not like about Garrett Wilson. He's a phenomenal route runner. He's shown that he's got really good speed. To add on to that route running ability, he's a playmaker. His contested catch ability is awesome. He's a little bit more aggressive at the catch than you would think for a guy of his size. He is kind of the prototypical new age alpha wide receiver. You know, these wide receivers who are coming in who are a little bit smaller, but they're like route technicians. And they've been able to separate themselves from a lot of even the athletic freaks in the NFL. And for fantasy's sake, that is kind of a big differentiator. When you have guys who are in the same tier, who are really close, the guys who can do the actual wide receiver things right, like being route technicians, being really smooth in and out of their cuts, not drifting at the top of the routes, things like that. Those are the things that kind of separate you as a wide receiver, as a prospect. But even when you're in looking at a top tier of wide receivers, because I think that we've got 2 or 3 guys here who are in one tier, who are in our tier 1. And Garrett Wilson, I think, even separates himself a little bit more, even if he's in the same tier, because of what he can do as a route runner. I think he is the top guy out of Ohio State. I think he's the top wide receiver prospect in this class. I think Justin might have him at 2. I've got him at 1. And I think really there's a lot to love here, and there's not a lot that you shouldn't be liking about Garrett Wilson's game. So we'll see where he lands. I think the big thing for him is he has a couple concentration drop issues, but like we've seen with Deontay Johnson, like we've seen with a lot of these guys who are going to get peppered with targets, they're going to drop the ball every now and again. As long as that is something that isn't a lingering issue that doesn't kind of leak into his mental game a lot more in his rookie season, and he doesn't struggle early with that, I'm not concerned at all. So he is my number 1 wide receiver. Like I said, he is Justin's number 2. He's coming in at our consensus number 1. All right, number 2 on our consensus list is Treylin Burks. He used to be number 1. I moved him down actually to my wide receiver 3, even though Justin has him, I believe right now at least, as his wide receiver 1. He's a big dude. He's 6'2", 225. He is 22 years old, so he's a little bit older than the rest of this group. But, I mean, physically, there is not much that Treylin Burks can't do. And that's one of the things that had him as the number 1 for a lot of people, and for us for a long time. He is one of those guys who is phenomenal run after the catch ability. He is aggressive. He is strong. He plays bigger, believe it or not, than his size. The thing that you have to think about with Treylin Burks is, sure, he's a little bit older. That's not a huge deal, especially in Dynasty. Don't even worry about that right now. 22 is still very young. But with Treylin Burks, you have to take into consideration that a lot of the time a lot of his touches were manufactured. Sure, his separation stuff isn't amazing, but a lot of that is because he's getting the ball in weird spaces. He's aggressive at the catch point, so the separation isn't a huge issue. But his manufactured touches in college can be a problem. If they're going to continue to do that in the NFL, depending where he lands, then it might not be a huge deal. But he played out of the slot a lot, so his release package wasn't something that was spectacular. He didn't have to have it be a spectacular release package off the line because he was on the slot. He didn't ever really dealt with really press coverage in that situation. So Treylin Burks is a guy who he has all of the physical giftings. Now he needs to work on the things that I talk about with Garrett Wilson. Can he fine-tune his route running? Can he fine-tune some of the details of being a true wide receiver and not just an athletic freak who can dominate the rest of the players on the field? I think he can do it, and that's why he's our consensus 2. And like I said, my wide receiver 3. But we got to see it first before I can put him as my top guy in this class. All right, jumping to number 3 on the list, Drake London, he is a big dude, 6'4", 219. He's 21 years old. And Drake London, he only played, I think he never played more than 8 games in his college career, but there was COVID happening. He did have an injury. And so there was a couple things that were prevalent for him that kind of slowed down how much production he could truly have in college. But what you have seen from Drake London is that he's actually a good separator. Most people will tell you that he's not a good separator. Pay attention to the film. He's a great separator. And the thing is, even when he didn't separate, I shouldn't say great separator. He's a good separator. And when he didn't separate, when he wasn't able to truly break away from these DBs, what he is phenomenal at is contorting his body control in the air, tracking the ball. His ball tracking ability is really, really great. And I think for him too, he's actually not as bad of a route runner for a big bodied guy that you'd think. It's definitely not one of his strengths, but he is one of those guys who, like we've seen out of USC, the Michael Pittmans, the Robert Woods, who are a little bit bigger, a little bit less fine-tuned, but they use their bodies well. They are smart football players. His football IQ is one of the reasons why I have him up here. He's actually my wide receiver 2, or actually my wide receiver 4 on this on my rankings. I think Justin has him as his wide receiver 3. I think for me, the thing is, we're going to have to see if with his just body composition, is his strength going to be able to be up to par with what he's going to be able to face at the NFL level. I think he will, but he might struggle a little bit if he isn't given a little bit more space. I think his release package is something he's got to work on a little bit as well off the line. But I think ultimately, pros for Drake London: size, football IQ, body control, ball tracking, awesome. Contested catch, great. Some of his little bit more of his weaker points are, not the best separator, not bad. And then what is he going to do? How is he going to use his strength at the next level? It's a plus right now, but again, he's playing in college. When he plays at the next level, is that something he's going to have to work on? I don't think it's a huge concern, but it's something to be noted. All right, let's jump to our consensus wide receiver 4. I think Justin has him as his wide receiver 5. I've got him as my wide receiver 2 in this class, actually, and that's George Pickens, 6'3", 195, 21 years old. George Pickens has long speed. He is kind of a game breaker for me. I think he's one of those guys who can be a big play threat. He reminds me a lot of like AJ Green, but a little bit of a smaller version of an Andre Johnson, even, because he plays really, really aggressive. He isn't the biggest dude. When you look at his weight, he's under 200 pounds. But I think he plays bigger than that. He plays up to that 6'3" size. He's an aggressive guy. He's someone who has dealt with injury in his college career, and that's something you have to note. That's probably why a lot of people have him knocked down quite a bit. But I'm not overly concerned about his injury issues in college. I think he's going to be able to stay healthy at the next level. And if he is able to stay healthy, he is a guy who his profile just shows us that he is the prototypical long field stretching type wide receiver. I think he could land in a place, especially where people are expecting him to go in the second round of the NFL draft. He could be someone who lands with the Bears. He could land with the Packers. He could land with Detroit. He could land with the Texans. So all teams that are building, they're hoping to do more at the quarterback position. They're hoping to do more as offense. And it's obviously the draft's going to tell us a lot. But right now, I think you can get George Pickens at the beginning of the second round of your rookie drafts, and that is a home run for me. Like I said, I've got him as my wide receiver 2 in the class. I think the injury concern is the only real negative when I look at George Pickens' game, and I don't think it's going to be a large looming concern for him in the NFL. All right, so let's go to our final guy, number 5 on our list, and a lot of people are probably going to be like, how is this guy not higher? Jameson Williams. He's recovering from a torn ACL. He's 6'1", 179, 21 pounds. That would be alarming. He's 21 years old, and he is a burner. I think that he is one of the guys in this class who a lot of people before the injury had as their number 1, number 2 wide receiver. I had him as my number 5 at the time. Right now, I've got him as my number 6. Justin has him as, I believe, his number 3 number 4 wide receiver in this class. And Jameson Williams is a guy who, similar to Garrett Wilson, like if he's able to have his game translate to the NFL level, he is going to be kind of like a Stephon Diggs kind of player, where he's a really good route runner. He's got speed that kills. And if he lands in the right situation, he could be a guy that blows up and really is a producer as early as year one, as long as he's able to get right from his ACL injury, which it looks like he should be able to do, and get on the field. I think for Jameson Williams, the big issue for me is similar to what I talked about with Drake London, but it's a much larger looming concern, his strength. He sometimes at the line, if he gets blocked or locked up early by a DB, he's not able to get off the line fast enough. And so I think for Jameson Williams, he is a guy who will for sure need to add strength to see success at the next level. And I think he can do that, but it's something that that keeps him out of my top 5. Justin, like I said, has him within his, and he's our consensus number 5. But a lot of people have John Mechie much lower. I actually have John Mechie, who's our wide receiver 6 consensus, above Jameson Williams, because he does everything that Jameson Williams does, but I think he plays stronger. He plays bigger. He's a little bit more versatile than Jameson Williams is. And so I think long-term, Jameson Williams he will have the ability to succeed in the NFL. He's in our top 5 or top 6, whatever. But you got to make sure that he lands in the right spot and is able to put on that strength. He is one of those guys who a lot of people will be probably wishing they took if all goes right, but he also probably has, of our top 5, he's probably got the biggest chance to let people down. All right, guys. Well, let me know your thoughts below. Don't forget, you can follow me on Twitter at Marco_14P. You can check out 14 Personnel at 14P_fantasy. Subscribe to the YouTube channel that you're watching this video on. And also our Patreon. We are updating our Dynasty rankings, I think, this week, and our rookie rankings this week as well. Those are going to be tiered. And so you can go to our Patreon, patreon.com/14P fantasy, and you can find rankings that are updated regularly. In season, they're going to be updated regularly for redraft and for Dynasty. But right now, we are releasing videos early to YouTube. We are releasing our Dynasty rankings, we're releasing our rookie rankings, and those are all tiered. And they're not tiered anywhere else but our Patreon. So make sure to jump into Patreon. You can subscribe for, I think, as little as $2 a month. And then there's a $5 tier and a $9 tier. And if you do the $9 tier, Justin and I will break down one of your Dynasty teams of your choice. We'll give you some trade advice, some ad drop advice, moves to make, and things that you can do to help your Dynasty team succeed. Thanks for hanging out, and we will see you next time. Peace.